Imagine walking through the ancient walls of a fortress, feeling the weight of history all around you. But what if the echoes you hear aren't just from the past? What if the souls of soldiers and forgotten warriors still haunt these battle-scarred structures? In today's video, we're about to take you on a spine-chilling journey through the 15 most haunted forts in America. From eerie whispers in the night to ghostly apparitions that still roam the grounds, these places hold secrets far darker than you might expect. Get ready, because the line between the living and the dead is about to blur, and you won't believe what's lurking in these haunted fortresses. Let's dive into the stories that will leave you questioning. Is it just history or something more sinister? 1. Fort Mifflin, Pennsylvania. Fort Mifflin, an imposing Revolutionary War-era fortress, is cloaked in layers of tragic history and ghostly whispers. Known as the Fort that Saved America, it once endured a brutal siege, leaving the grounds soaked in blood and sorrow. Yet, its most famous tale is that of the Screaming Lady. Visitors recount hearing piercing, blood-curdling screams echoing from the old officers' quarters, where it is said Elizabeth Pratt, a grieving mother, took her life after losing her daughter. On quiet nights, her ghostly cries shatter the stillness, sending shivers down spines. Many who dare enter her room feel an icy chill wrap around them, as if unseen hands are trying to pull them into the depths of her despair. Even more unsettling are the shadowy figures that dart through the darkened hallways, disappearing just as quickly as they appear. Some say the fort itself is alive, holding on to the spirits of those who met their end in its grasp. 2. Fort Monroe, Virginia. Fort Monroe, nicknamed Freedom's Fortress, harbors a grim undercurrent of haunting tales. It is said the ghost of Jefferson Davis, the Confederate president once imprisoned here, still roams the grounds. His spectral figure has been spotted in the darkened corners of the casemate, his stern face illuminated by an eerie glow. But the most spine-chilling accounts come from soldiers stationed at the fort. They report phantom footsteps in empty hallways and faint whispers echoing through the stone walls. The apparition of a woman in a flowing white gown, believed to be a grieving widow, has been seen walking along the fortress ramparts before vanishing into thin air. Many visitors leave Fort Monroe shaken, convinced they've felt the weight of history pressing down upon them in the form of restless spirits. 3. Fort Worden, Massachusetts. On the windswept island of George lies Fort Worden, its stone walls steeped in Civil War tragedy. The ghost of the Lady in Black is the fort's most famous specter. Legend tells of a woman who tried to free her husband, a Confederate prisoner, only to be caught and executed. Before her death, she wore a black dress to disguise herself, and her ghostly figure still lingers in mourning. Visitors have reported hearing faint cries of anguish and feeling cold, ghostly hands brush against their skin. Some claim to see her shadow flickering along the granite walls, her presence so palpable that it leaves a lingering sense of dread. Her story is one of love and tragedy, eternally tied to the unforgiving walls of Fort Worden. 4. Fort Delaware, Delaware. Once a prison for thousands of Confederate soldiers, Fort Delaware is a bastion of despair and ghostly energy. The cries of imprisoned soldiers still echo through its halls, and visitors often feel an oppressive heaviness, as if they're being watched by countless unseen eyes. The most chilling tale is of a soldier who roams the corridors, dragging chains across the cold, damp floor. His presence is heralded by the sound of metallic scraping that reverberates through the stone walls. Some have seen his shadowy figure, only for him to vanish when approached. Others report hearing disembodied whispers, calling out names that are lost to time. The atmosphere within the fort feels alive, pulsating with the sorrow of its tragic past. 5. Castillo de San Marcos, Florida. Castillo de San Marcos, the oldest masonry fort in the U.S., exudes an aura of mystery and unease. Beneath its ancient coquina walls lie dark secrets, including the legend of two lovers who were sealed alive in one of the chambers. Tourists and ghost hunters alike have reported hearing muffled cries and scratching sounds emanating from the walls, as if the spirits of the doomed lovers are still trying to escape. The ghost of a Spanish soldier is often seen patrolling the fort at night, his spectral form illuminated by the moonlight. Those brave enough to enter the chambers claim to feel sudden drops in temperature and hear faint whispers in Spanish, as though the fort is recounting its tragic history. The Castillo is a haunting reminder that some stories refuse to be forgotten. 6. Fort Pulaski, Georgia. Fort Pulaski, with its formidable brick walls and strategic position during the Civil War, holds within it the echoes of deadly battles fought on its grounds. The air here is thick with the presence of lost souls, those of the soldiers who perished in the bloody siege of 1862. Many claim that the fort's dark, narrow corridors are haunted by the restless spirits of Confederate and Union soldiers who met their end in the chaos of war. Visitors report hearing disembodied footsteps echoing across the ramparts, accompanied by faint voices calling out orders in the heat of battle. Some claim to have seen figures in military garb standing near the fort's walls, only to have them vanish when approached. Others have experienced sudden drops in temperature and a sense of being watched, as if the very stones of the fort are holding on to the souls of the fallen. The atmosphere here is thick with tension, as if history itself refuses to let go. 7. Fort McArthur, California. Fort McArthur, perched along the Southern California coastline, has seen its fair share of military history, but it also harbors a darker, more unsettling legacy. This once active military installation, now a museum, is rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of soldiers and civilians alike. The most terrifying accounts come from those who have ventured into the underground bunkers and tunnels that crisscross the area. Many have heard strange, unexplainable voices echoing through the darkened hallways, as if the walls themselves are whispering the stories of soldiers long gone. Others have seen shadowy figures drifting through the tunnels, their forms barely visible in the low light. One particularly chilling tale involves a ghostly figure who appears in the control tower, silently watching over the grounds. Witnesses claim the figure is that of a former soldier who died tragically at the fort and continues to keep his post even in death. 8. Fort Ticonderoga, New York. Fort Ticonderoga, located in upstate New York, is a fort with a rich history that dates back to the French and Indian War. Its significance in American history is undeniable, but so too are the chilling stories that surround it. Built in the mid-1700s, Fort Ticonderoga was the site of bloody battles, and it has been a focal point for paranormal activity ever since. The most famous hauntings here are attributed to the restless spirits of soldiers who lost their lives during these brutal battles. Visitors report hearing the sounds of drums beating late at night, as if the soldiers are still preparing for battle. Disembodied voices are often heard calling out orders, and the air is filled with a cold, unsettling presence. In the darkened hallways of the fort, many have seen flickering lights, as though lanterns are being carried by invisible hands. One of the most terrifying accounts comes from a visitor who saw a soldier in full uniform appear in one of the fort's towers, only to vanish when approached. The fort's thick stone walls seem to hold the echoes of the past, and those who venture into its depths often leave with a sense of dread, feeling that the spirits of those who died here are still locked within its walls. 9. Fort Adams, Rhode Island. Steeped in history and tragedy, Fort Adams in Rhode Island has earned its reputation as one of the most haunted military sites in the country. Built in the 19th century, the fort has seen numerous soldiers, workers, and prisoners walk through its gates, and many never left. The fort is said to be haunted by the ghosts of those who died in its construction, or those who met untimely deaths during its military use. Many visitors report hearing disembodied voices, the sounds of footsteps echoing through the empty halls, and the clinking of tools from long-dead laborers. Perhaps most unsettling are the sightings of ghostly soldiers, dressed in period uniforms, standing guard on the ramparts. Their presence is palpable, and they have been seen pacing the grounds at night, as if still carrying out their duties. Others report the sudden coldness in certain rooms, accompanied by a strange feeling of dread, as though they are not alone. 10. Fort Gaines, Alabama. Nestled on Dauphin Island, Fort Gaines stands as a solemn reminder of the Civil War's violent past. This well-preserved fort is rumored to be haunted by the spirits of soldiers who fought and died here. Visitors have reported hearing the heavy sound of footsteps, particularly on the upper levels of the fort, where shadows seem to move on their own. The most eerie sightings are of dark, indistinct figures that appear to be moving along the walls or peering out from darkened corners. One story tells of a shadowy figure that has been seen standing at the edge of the fort's ramparts, staring out over the water before disappearing into the night. Those brave enough to venture into the fort's interior report hearing strange noises, scratching sounds, faint whispers, and the clatter of chains dragging across the floor. The atmosphere is thick with the weight of history, and it's said that the fort's ghosts are forever tied to the battles and lives lost within its walls. Visitors who stay too long often leave with a sense of unease, as though something unseen is watching their every move. 11. Fort Point, California. Nestled beneath the iconic Golden Gate Bridge, Fort Point in California is an imposing fortress with a dark, eerie reputation. The fort, which dates back to the Civil War, is famous not only for its strategic significance, but for its unsettling paranormal activity. Visitors to Fort Point often report strange, disembodied voices echoing through its dimly lit hallways, voices that seem to come from nowhere, whispers carried by the wind, or sometimes ghostly shouts, as though a battle is still raging. A common sensation experienced by many is the feeling of being watched or followed, even when no one else is around. Those who dare to venture into the darker corners of the fort claim to have seen shadowy figures moving out of the corner of their eyes. These mysterious apparitions are often associated with the restless spirits of soldiers who once manned the fort's cannons during tense periods of the Civil War. Their presence, cold and ominous, lingers in the air, making every step feel like a journey into the past. 12. Fort Zachary Taylor, Florida. Fort Zachary Taylor, located in Key West, Florida, is a historic site known for both its stunning views and its chilling hauntings. The fort, which dates back to the mid-1800s, has long been a place of strange occurrences and ghostly encounters. Many visitors have reported hearing the faint sound of cannon fire and the unsettling noise of boots marching across the stone floors of the fort's interior, sounds that echo in the empty chambers where no one is supposed to be. The most chilling stories revolve around sightings of spectral soldiers near the fort's cannons. Their figures appear in full uniform, standing near the massive artillery before fading into thin air. Others have reported strange whispers and the sensation of being touched in the dark, often in the empty rooms of the fort. Some claim to see figures darting in and out of the dark corners of the rooms, as though these spirits are trying to escape their eternal post. Fort Zachary Taylor is a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and its ghostly residents are as persistent as they were in life. 13. Fort Snelling, Minnesota. Fort Snelling, located in the heart of Minnesota, has long been regarded as a site of tragedy and unrest. Built in the early 19th century, the fort played a key role in the history of the United States, but its past is also marked by the suffering of Native Americans, many of whom were forcibly relocated to nearby camps. The spirits of these Native American souls are said to haunt the fort, often appearing in the form of white, ethereal shadows. These ghosts are believed to be those who died while being held in the fort, or those who perished in the surrounding areas. Their presence is particularly felt near the fort's barracks, where visitors often report seeing pale figures drifting through the walls or standing silently in the distance, watching with sorrowful eyes. Strange, unexplainable cold spots are a common occurrence, especially in the fort's underground rooms. Many who spend time at Fort Snelling report a profound sense of unease, as though they are being drawn into the tragic history that the spirits continue to relive. 14. Fort Casey, Washington. Fort Casey, located on Whidbey Island in Washington, is a Civil War-era fortress that remains shrouded in mystery. This site, which once housed a critical military installation to protect the Puget Sound, is now a popular destination for paranormal investigators due to its strange and unsettling occurrences. Visitors to Fort Casey have reported a variety of eerie experiences, particularly in the fort's dark, labyrinthine hallways and abandoned gun emplacements. One of the most chilling accounts is the consistent sighting of shadowy, indistinct figures darting across the grounds or vanishing into the walls. In some cases, the figures appear to be soldiers on duty, as though they are still guarding the fort. Others have heard distant laughter echoing through the empty rooms, a sound that seems out of place in such a desolate, isolated location. Some believe this laughter belongs to the spirits of soldiers who died unexpectedly, their spirits trapped in time. The fort's oppressive atmosphere makes it feel as if something is always just out of sight, lurking in the darkness, watching. 15. Fort Worden, Washington. Fort Worden, situated on the scenic shores of Puget Sound in Washington, is not only a place of military history, but also one of eerie ghost stories. The fort was active from the late 19th century into World War II, and the spirits of those who served there are said to haunt its remains. The paranormal activity at Fort Worden is as varied as it is terrifying. Visitors frequently report hearing strange noises, such as the echoing sounds of marching boots, the clinking of metal, and eerie voices that seem to drift from the empty corridors. Many also experience inexplicable cold spots, especially near the fort's large artillery batteries, where spirits of long-dead soldiers are believed to stand guard. One particularly chilling legend is of a soldier's ghost who appears near the fort's lighthouse, standing solemnly as though awaiting a ship that will never return. Some people who have spent the night in the old barracks claim they have seen glowing eyes in the dark, watching them from the shadows. The overwhelming sense of coldness and isolation creates an atmosphere where the line between the living and the dead seems to blur. Fort Worden remains a place where spirits of the past refuse to rest. From the cold winds whispering through the ruins to the ghostly figures that seem to never leave, these haunted forts hold secrets that refuse to stay buried. But the question remains, are you brave enough to visit them and face what's hiding in the shadows? If you've enjoyed this eerie journey through America's most haunted fortifications, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more spine-tingling stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which haunted fort would you dare to visit? Until next time, remember, history is never truly forgotten, and some spirits never rest.